So why can't we? I know what you want, Jaws, and it's smart. Like, we all want to do it. Let's just make them blame Ten Hag and focus solely on him. It's a clever game, but it's not going to wash. It's ridiculous to say that Man United fans can't do exactly what you did at the end of last season and hold your board accountable for continuing.
You can't do it because every club has the same problem. Every club has dead wood. We all have dead wood we can't get rid of.
So none of us can complain about it.
Sit here and no, but when we look at it, we're looking at the managers and the football that's played on pitch. We're gonna hold the managers accountable. Otherwise, every club can sit here and be like, "Oh yeah, our board's not doing it good for us. Our board's not spending money."
If you improve this year, if Tottenham improve this year, but you don't quite get to the level you want to be, and it's because you couldn't bring in 3 or 4 additional players because the dead wood wasn't sold, are you saying you're not going to mention that at all? You're just going to look at it. It's irrelevant why the football weren't quite as good as we wanted it to be. We're just going to focus on what the manager did.
I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to sit here and.
I think what Jules is getting at is that basically right now, with what's going on the pitch, he's not really trying to see. Jules, correct me if I'm wrong. You're not trying to see any Glazer scarves, any Norwich scarves come out because of the performances on the pitch. Are you trying to say that because right now, looking at what's going on the pitch, you're looking at the manager rather than the Glazers? Am I right?
100%. If the team was good, and like you said, Terry, the reference they use for Tottenham is if the team was playing good, and then they're just that, like with Tottenham and Pochettino, they're just that step away. You can see that step away from going to the next level. Then you'd be like, oh, okay, it makes sense. But
so we're disregarding the whole of last season then. So we're disregarding the whole of last season. That don't count.
You was good, okay, but he's made signings. He's brought in his marquee signing, which is Mason Mount.
So answer my question? Are we disregarding last season?
We're not disregarding last season. How have I said we've disregarded last?
So we're
last
focusing
season?
Everything that he's done on 2 games this season.
No, because last season, although you finished high in the table, at points the performances weren't good. You was just getting by.
There were some bad games. There were some bad games. Absolutely, like most teams. My point is this: I understand that criticizing the team on the pitch is what it is, but if we go back and listen to the stream later. I didn't turn around and say we've played badly in his opening 2 games because McTominay's still here. I'm talking about the overarching problems at the club. Now we need more balance in that team. But if we can't add the players in to create that balance because the board can't sell, therefore we can't buy, which is, by the way, we've got the money to do it. They're just refusing to. For me to not be able to hold that partly accountable if these problems continue is a fucking madness to me. It's a fucking madness. If I have to say you can't blame your ownership for not getting new players in and selling players, what am I meant to do? Just ignore it. That's crazy. But that's just my take anyway. Boys, how are Man United going to improve?
Buy a midfielder. Yeah.
Or change the way you play, change the way he set up on the pitch. To be honest, there are other ways. Listen, you still have McTominay. He's a terrible player and everything. It's just another body in the midfield to help Casemiro. It's ridiculous to say, but I said before the game, if he played McTominay, your midfield would have been in more control. Would have been stronger defensively, at least. You'll have somebody there. Listen, McTominay is a football player at the end. He's terrible, yes, but that midfield is just there's 30 yards between them, between Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, and Casemiro. It didn't work out. Maybe plays Eriksen as of now because it's not working. I'm looking at the tools he has now. Just play Eriksen. Just go back to the midfield that worked last year. Just do it again. I think he's stubborn. I think he wants to prove a point.
I don't think they can go back to last year, though. I think Ten Hag's in a difficult spot right now because if you go back to the way you played last year, which, if we're honest, it wasn't good football, it wasn't convincing results, it was great, a lot of clean sheets and a lot of 1-0s, but I don't think that's sustainable. And if you go back to that again and you finish top 4 and you don't do well in the Champions League, playing that style of football, it's going to feel like you've not progressed at all, which is bad for Ten Hag. But if he keeps trying to play this kind of more progressive system that he's been trying to play but doesn't have the players to do it, you could end up getting battered a lot. And so I think he's in a really difficult spot, and I think he has to bring in Amrabat and try and continue playing the kind of way that he wants to play this season. But
so what if he doesn't? Now. Okay, so what if he doesn't? What if he doesn't have... Look, next week comes in, he doesn't have Amrabat. What do people think he should do? Because it's looking underwhelming,
like you said, he's going to have to use McTominay in some games.
I'm bringing Sancho. Why is Sancho getting run in the team? Why is persisting with Anthony when it's obviously not working for the whole time?
Again, I keep hearing this. Why is Sancho not getting a run in the team? Because he's been playing for us for 2 years and had 1 good game. As bad as Anthony is, and I want him dropped, people are rewriting history that Sancho will be balling. I heard someone the other day say Martial's got to come back in. We need him. Fuck my boots. These two have been as bad as Anthony for years.
Is it true that in pre-season you're playing Sancho in the line?
We played him in a false nine role because we had no strikers at that point.
Right. He looked quite good against us.
This is what I don't like. Yeah, your manager knows that Rashford isn't as effective through the middle. Play Sancho. Can he do any worse? Because Rashford on the wing was cooking for you lot. Yeah, so why, when I see managers doing the same mistakes that you've seen has not worked and you persist with it, it is on you. I think it's divided at Man United. The ownership have to give the money, they have to uphold the standards of the football club, but they also have to get rid of the dead wood. And the manager has to do with what he has, and he has to achieve more. Ten Hag knew what type of football club he was walking into. He knows the state of Man United. Last season, he didn't have all his players, and he managed to win you something. And he managed to get the best football with a squad that isn't fully his. When we're seeing when we're seeing Mount in the team over Eriksen, I mean, this is not a Mount player that you got from abroad. This is a player that's been in the Premier League. He hasn't done it. That's a risk. You're at Man United. You know that you don't have Man United have a lot of money. You don't have endless money. You haven't got Arab owners. Why is it that you're going for Mason Mount? When you have limited resources, when you're going for a player, you need to make sure that player more than likely is going to
spot on.
Don't you think?
And this is why I go on to my football club. My football club is run self-sustained. So that's why when I'm seeing people like Havertz, I'm thinking we don't have the riches of Man City. So when we sign a player, it has to work. Look at how long Pepe's been here because we can't move him because we're trying to recoup that money. You can't be making signings like Mount. For everything I can give praise for to Ten Hag, like Casemiro, like when he bought Martinez. At the same time, we've seen how good Martinez could be. Last season, he was sourcing. Why is there a regression? Not only in certain individuals, but your style of football. That's going to cause concern for the fan base. And for me, I'm sorry, playing Anthony, he bought Anthony as well, another player that didn't come cheap. And he's not banging. He didn't bang last season, if you look at his season in totality. And this season, he's already starting poor as well. Those are things you can aim at the manager. The tactics and the players that he does choose to bring in with the limited resources, ultimately, for me, fall to the manager. Now, if the ownership are not moving on dead wood, that is on the ownership. But if your club is then re-signing this dead wood, which is what happens at my football club, I think it's on both. Because the manager can't be re-endorsing extending the contract of players that for under numerous managers have failed at your club and not produced for your club. And then the ownership as well, because those players have failed you, get rid, start new. So I think it's a balance at Man United. I think anyone that's blaming it fully on Ten Hag, I think is disingenuous. Everyone that's blaming solely on the Glazers is disingenuous. Ten Hag knew what kind of football club he was working in. He knew what football club he was coming into. So at the end of the day, you knew you're going to have to, until the club is sold, you're going to have to deal with certain players. Why is it that he could get the best out of the minimum last season, and in this season you're reverting back to things that didn't work last season? For me, I'm sorry, the manager has to be made accountable.
See, what you've just said, I think is absolutely spot on, and I think it's right. And it is a balancing act between the two things. Of course, there's things he's got to be criticised for. I have done in my last two match reactions. He doesn't get a pass from me. It's just when the people talk about Norwich scarves and everything else, it's something that's very dear to my heart. You know, I've sacrificed. You know, I haven't brought my children to a Manchester United game because I think that giving a club that treats you poorly money makes you one of them. I think anyone who moans about their ownerships but still gives money to their club is a charlatan, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And you know, it's something that's dear to my heart when it comes to Man United, and I'll always hold my owners overly. Look, again, if Ten Hag fouls, I'll blame the owners because they appointed him. At the end of the day, if I run a business and I employ someone to work for me and they fail, it's my fault. Like in the cold hard light of day, it's always going to fall to them. But within that, there are things that are on Ten Hag, and I think the Anthony issue is one of them because he is not getting any better. He doesn't want to take a man on. He's been horrendous. I understand he does good off the ball work. He does do good off the ball work. And that's why people ask, why doesn't he pick Sancho? Because Sancho's off the ball work consistently isn't good. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's got two players that barely create and score, but at least one helps him keep his shape, generally speaking. But we need better in that area, but there's no way that's improving this year because I don't think Palestri or Ahmad, I know our fans gas them up. I just don't think they're good enough, personally. Otherwise, they'd be playing right now. You're absolutely spot on. Playing Rashford as a number 9 infuriates me on so many levels because I just want Rashford. You look at the progression in Saka because he's on that right and that's where he plays and that's his position. Like Rashford, it's like he starts getting into a good run on the left and then he's moved into the middle. And it's so, for me as a United fan, it's infuriating. The way our midfield is currently structured, it's fine to have 2 8s go forward, but then you've got to invert your fullbacks. It's simple stuff. It's what everybody's doing so that your midfield don't get overrun. And like people have tried to blame Casemiro. Oh, he's lost it. He's gone. No, he hasn't. It's an absolute, if you believe that, again, you're what I call a basic bitch. You're looking at the symptom of a real problem because he's been dribbled past 7 times this year. Bruno's been dribbled past 6 times and Mount 4. There's a Man United issue in that midfield. It's all of them are being dribbled past consistently because of our positionings when we're getting caught in the transition. It's as simple and as straightforward as that for me. And in fact, Casemiro was great last year. You all think was great. Would you all say was great last year?
Very good.
I think he was good enough. I think he was good enough.
Good enough. Well, he was the 3rd most dribble pass person in the league last year. No one cared. Name me maybe the top 2 or 3 DMs in the Prem last year.
I would say Rodri number 1, Rodri number 1, Casemiro, then Partey.
Partey for the first.
And Caicedo.
What about a guy? How good was the guy at Fulham?
Yeah,
Paulinho was very good as well.
Paulinho
Yeah, but
was
Casemiro has something.
Hang on. I know the reason I'm asking you. It's not a debate. Paulinho was the most dribble pass person in the league, averaging nearly 2.5 times per game last season. No one cared about that stat last year because they look at the tackles he made, but the structure was good. So just being dribble past isn't the issue. It's why is this happening? And it's a structural issue. And that's where I agree with George and I agree with Northside. That's where the manager's got to take accountability. If you're trying to be more progressive and it isn't working, don't persist with it. That's why Unai Emery lost his job at Arsenal.
But Terry,
as a United fan, Terry, as a United fan, go on, Northside. Go on.
Now, what I was going to say is you're saying that about Paulinho, and I get that, yeah. But at the same time, defending is a team game. Your managers put a midfield that Casemiro is literally on his own in that midfield.
Exactly.
And when we look at Paulinho, I'm not denying the stats, but who is helping him defend? Because if you've got 2 players like Bruno and you've got another player like Mason Mount that are going forward and not tracking back and not assisting, then Paulinho a lot of times is going to get dribbled over because he's going to get outrun in the midfield because nobody else is tracking back and helping.
This is exactly my point. This isn't about the stat in itself. It's fine. It's a fact, but it's why I call it the basic bitch analysis because you're looking at the what rather than the how and the why. And the why it's happening is because the midfield that's been picked and the tactics we're employing is leaving Casemiro exposed, and he's not the fastest player in the world anyway. And he has made some mistakes. There was a moment against Spurs where he pressed in for the ball and he got turned, very good turn, by the way, by Maddison. And then there was a big hole. So he's not blameless in any of this, but that's the problem with analysis nowadays. Everybody wants to be polarized and all or nothing. And I'm not suggesting Cass hasn't made mistakes in games. I'm not suggesting that the other players haven't made mistakes and it isn't the system. There were definitely times where our fullbacks should have tucked in tighter, but at the same time, it's the manager's job to get it right. So in terms of what you've seen from Man United in the first few days, though, there is a sort of conclusion to this conversation before we move on to the other teams. Where do you guys see Man United finishing now based on these first couple of games? I'll go to George first on that. Where are United going to finish in the league this year now?
I'm not going to be reactionary and think you guys aren't going to finish in the top 6. I feel like that's a no-brainer. I feel like the top 6 is going to be where you guys finish, but in and around where it is going to be, I don't know. I feel like we need to wait and see this last week of the transfer window, not just for yourself, but for all the other teams that are in the top 6, because there's a few teams still missing a few pieces. Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, all of us, like a lot of us are still missing key pieces to improve our team to make sure that we're top 4 contenders down bad. So I'd say you guys are going to be in the top 6, just don't know where. In and around the 4th to 6th position.
Anyone see it worse than top 6?
Not right now.
You'll get top 5.
You've still got Højlund to come back. You've still got Rashford to go back on the left. And Terry, I was going to ask you a question as a United fan as well. I'm not defending Ten Hag because I think right now he's not making the right decisions. But do you think in the back of his mind he would have thought the ownership would have been sorted by now? Like with the Qataris and stuff.
Yeah, I think most people did because they put the noise. The Glazers were the ones who put the noise out that it was going to be done in March, and then it's gone on to June. Now it's happening now. There's talk that November it might be concluded, and that will help change the club. And nothing to do with spending. Again, rival fans always go to the spending. It's not proper Man United fans don't moan about the spending. We moan about the running of the club, the structure of the club, and the behaviour. And I don't know what jobs you all do. I don't know what professions you work in. If you've ever worked for a big multinational company and suddenly you get a new MD that comes in who's just got more vigor, more life, better leadership skills, a department of that company, the company overall can improve just through the personality of a person. You look at Newcastle. Yes, they've bought well, bought good quality players. But the biggest reason they've improved in the last 18 months is because of the mentality the new ownership have got to win. And it's infectious. And sometimes you don't know how bad your ownership and leadership is until you get new ones. You think there'll be Man United players probably think they push and work as hard day to day as a football club in its entirety as Man City and Newcastle do. I guarantee if you stuck them in those other clubs for a few weeks, they'd be like, fuck me, we're a disgrace. And we notice that with people like Ronaldo that come in and go, oh my God, what's happened to my football club? So yeah, I do think that's a big part of it. And we do need new owners. But, you know, I think what Northside said is right. Our manager knows what our owners are like. He knows what they do. So you've got to get the best out of that situation that you're in and not sort of behave like they're not there. You've got to acknowledge it. So yeah, it plays a part, but it is what it is. You know what you've got. It hasn't changed yet, so you've got to adapt to it, in my personal opinion. But viewers, do us a favor and smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribing as well. This super chat says, "Stop with the Norwich scarves, you Chelsea bum." United have been protesting since 2008, the year we won UEFA Champions League. The board is 100% to blame. It's always a vicious cycle. Man United fans, stop giving money to the Glazers. I mean, it is always a vicious cycle. Imagine we get it wrong 5 times on the bounce. Eric should have handled his budget better. You could definitely put that with, especially with Anthony. You can definitely look at that, and we'll see what happens with Mount. We're not going to overly judge it if we're only 2 games in, but there's elements of that are definitely true. However, it's where the Man United fans will come in and counter that argument is if we didn't have all the debt and the money was being taken out of our club, you could counter those mistakes like Pep did by going out and buying again. And that's where, as Man United fans, that's where we should be. But we don't have the money because they waste it all. So I do get what you're saying.